Welcome, everybody, to the latest iteration of the Knicks Yemen Roundup. It has been a while. My apologies. Over the course of the past month, it's all been good news. Mostly, just I've had other work that I've needed to do instead of this, but I am trying to provide a comprehensive overview of the last month and change that I missed. Um, a couple updates. So I did. One of the major reasons why I wasn't able to do these roundups for the last several weeks is I was working on a piece. I'll plug it at the end for Arab Center DC called "Fueling Instability: Hydrocarbons Protests and the Limits of Yemen's Internationally Recognized Government." Feel free to go check that out. So that took up a lot of my time, and then I've also fortunately sort of settled into a more extensive work schedule in terms of paying work rather than sort of more advertising work such as this. So I will need to restructure this regular roundup to be a bi-weekly rather than a weekly call. Apologies for those of my 50 or so avid listeners. I will still be attempting to provide a comprehensive overview, very in depth, kind of maintain that level of granularity. But we'll need to be doing it bi-weekly. Fortunately, due to this, I may actually be able to expand to other products in the future, covering other countries in the Middle East. As I've said before, I'm not just a one-trick pony when it comes to Yemen, but have done other countries. And so I've been able to do some work on some other countries. And we'll see how that goes in terms of building expertise over the next several months, but hopefully might be able to get that out. And just ahead of everything, apologies if this call isn't as granular as they normally are. I do think I've hit all the important parts. But yeah, covering a month and 10 days or more is different than doing a weekly call. So apologies for that. But yeah, with that, sort of my normal introduction. My name is Nick J. Brumfield. I have a decade's experience analyzing Middle East politics and am regularly quoted in the international media, not just with regards to Yemen, but for countries throughout the Middle East. So if you're in the market for someone who has an expertise in that, who has strong research capabilities and proven track record, and would be interested in contracting with me, please feel free to reach out at info.nickjbrumfield@gmail.com. If you're unable to do that, that's all right. Just don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video so that folks who are interested in this kind of stuff can see the work and see if it can help them. But without further ado, we can go ahead and jump right into what the hell happened in Yemen over the course of the last month. And it has been a doozy, starting off with international affairs. A lot going on here across a couple different tracks here. We did see UN Special Envoy Grunberg sort of continue his attempts at regional diplomacy. We saw him conclude a visit to Riyadh on 20 August, where he met with Presidential Leadership Council Chairman Rashad Al-Alimi and Saudi Ambassador Mohammed Al-Jaber. We saw him on 2 September also conclude a visit to Muscat, where he met with the chief Houthi negotiator Mohammed Abdul Salam. Not too much has come out of this sort of negotiations thus far. He's been doing this off and on for the last several months, years at this point. He did give his monthly address to the UN Security Council on 15 September. Big sort of points to note is the UN's really, really pissed off at the Houthis right now following the Israeli airstrike that killed much of the Houthi cabinet in late August. The Houthis rounded up a lot more UN workers, and the UN is finally seeming to put its foot down, condemning the Houthis' detention of 22 additional UN staff. There are now over 40 UN workers detained in Houthi-held areas, and the UN does seem to be genuinely pulling back from Houthi-held areas. I'll talk a little bit more about that in later slides. Grunberg also urged the Yemeni government, the Houthis, Saudi Arabia, Oman, the UAE, and international community to prioritize his Yemen roadmap that has been largely stalled over the past 2 years. We did see, as a result of the UN General Assembly meeting, which saw a bunch of international leaders go to New York, We did see on 26 September, PLC members Alimi, Zubeidi, and Bawazir met with UN Secretary General Gutierrez in New York City. And Gutierrez stressed measures to protect humanitarian workers following the Houthi detention of additional UN workers earlier in the month, including moving offices to Aden, which has been a big ask for the Yemeni government. Now the UN seems to be doing it, actually. We also did see on 28 September, UN Secretary General Gutierrez issue a statement condemning both the kind of Houthi drone attack on Eilat that resulted in the injuries of 22 Israelis, as well as Israeli airstrikes on Sana'a that killed a lot of people and injured, over 100. So so not great. A lot going on, but not really positive news, I would say. Moving on over to the international affairs from the Yemeni government perspective, there was a lot of movement internationally among the Yemeni government senior leadership. We did see on 15 September, Presidential Leadership Council Chairman Rashada Al-Alimi, as well as Foreign Minister Dr. Sheikh Al-Zindani, head to Doha for the Emergency Doha Summit that was organized following Israel's really unprecedented airstrike on Qatar, trying to target Hamas leadership there. He gave a speech that was more or less kind of boilerplate, calling for joint Arab action on Israel-Palestine. We did see between 16 and 18 September, the United Kingdom and Saudi Arabia host a conference for the Yemen Maritime Security Partnership in Riyadh. More than 35 countries were in attendance, and essentially this is kind of an international mechanism to try to support, in particular, I think, the Yemen Coast Guard in its operations to interdict weapons, in particular from Iran, to Houthi forces in Yemen. So this has been something that they've been supporting for many years now, trying to do capacity building and all of that. And this seems to be taking that to the next level there. We did see 19 to 21 September, maybe a little bit before 19 September, there was a Yemeni government delegation led by Aden Governor Ahmed Hamid Lamlas that visited China. Lamlas visited China under the guise of being the governor of Aden, the governor of the Yemeni government's temporary capital. Lamlas, though, is also a senior member of the leadership of the Southern Transitional Council, which is the separatist group that's a member of the Yemeni government, but also kind of wants to secede from the Yemeni government. And so it would not surprise me if there were some conversations that were had on the side between China and the STC, sort of regarding that. There was nothing official put out, but I would be surprised if they didn't happen. On 23 September, we did see a Presidential Leadership Council head Alimi, as well as STC President and PLC member Zubeidi and PLC member Abdullah Bawazir Al-Alimi attend the UN General Assembly meeting, opening meeting in New York City. You can see them here, just seemingly so engaged and happy at the UN General Assembly meeting in New York City. Alimi gave his speech on 25 September to the UNGA, calling for firm international action against the Houthis, and sort of saying that the international community's sort of long-term strategy of containment has only brought disaster and destruction for everybody. The Houthis have only gotten better equipped. They've only gotten more capable at conducting international attacks. And he's saying that the international community needs to kind of take the gloves off, more or less. We also did see FTC President Idris al-Zubeidi, who attended the UNGA in sort of under the aegis of being a member of the Presidential Leadership Council, but stressed in STC-aligned media that he was very much pushing the STC's agenda of southern separation and secession from Yemen there. So he did give an interview on 25 September with The Guardian, during which he said that Southerners are ready for independence, that they have more or less are in control of South Yemen, and it's really just a matter of declaring it and having other countries recognize it. And he kind of said that it could happen at any moment, which is, definitely something, stuff seems to be happening. Whether the STC will actually go through with that, there was a controversy this this past month that I'll talk about on the next slide. But yeah, so he's definitely pushing that. And he also did say that an independent South Yemeni state would also likely join the Abraham Accords after the Gaza war, and was kind of stressing, sort of the South's, potential relationship with Israel, which has been an STC talking point for several years now, in part because it's UAE backed and the UAE has a strong relationship with Israel. Israel and Israel aligned groups have also seemingly kind of come out in support of Southern secession, in particular, even in the United States. Over the course of the last several months, we've seen several US think tanks that are historically aligned with Israel kind of pushing Southern narrative, Southern secession narrative. So that's something to keep an eye out on, and yeah, there's stuff going on with that. Moving on over to international affairs from the Houthi movement, we did see on 7 September acting foreign minister Abdul Wahid Abu Ras, who is the acting foreign minister because the Houthi foreign minister Jamal Amr was killed in that airstrike on 28 August. He met with the UN Special Envoy Office Director in Sana'a and stressed the need for the UN to show neutrality after the UN kind of excoriated the Houthis for detaining a lot of their people. And we also did see on 11 September the Houthis release Jordanian UNICEF Deputy Director in Sana'a. She was detained just the week previously. This was seemingly the result of a deal between the Houthis and Jordan that saw Houthi leaders, including Hisham Sharafuddin, travel from Amman, where he went for medical treatment over the course of the last couple months, back to Sana'a from Amman in return. So, something going on there. So of the 22 that were abducted by the Houthis, there are 21 from this past week that are in custody, and roughly 40 to 41 in custody from over the course of the last several years now. Moving on over to politics and governance from the kind of internal perspective from the Yemeni government, we did see a big controversy erupt on 10 September. So on 9 September, we did see Presidential Leadership Council head Alimi, as well as PLC members Arada and Bawazir, who are all Saudi-backed. Alimi's not Islah, but Arada is kind of aligned with Islah. Bawazir is definitely Islah. Arrived in Aden. STC president and PLC member Idris al-Zubaydi was already in Aden. But then just a couple hours after they got in, Zubaydi issued a series of appointments to Yemeni government aligned positions. This caused a crisis between pro and STC factions within the Yemeni government. Historically, at least, Presidential Leadership Council Chairman Alimi was the only person who issued these appointments, and anti-STC folks within the Yemeni government saw this as essentially the STC attempting to usurp ROYG authority Yemeni government authority to make these appointments in its secessionist project. The STC folks say that it was, an entitlement to the Southern cause. That Zubaydi was exercising his authority as a PLC member, and that the Yemeni government was kind of sluggish in resolving a lot of issues, and that he was kind of doing that. Most of the appointments were to either undersecretaries of various ministries, including a couple that are pretty anti-STC. He did appoint an undersecretary of the Ministry of Information, which the STC doesn't like. Ministry of Information, Iriani. And then they also appointed an undersecretary to the Ministry of Industry and Trade, which is also controlled by Islah, which the STC doesn't like, and as well as deputy officials to various governorates, most of which are under STC control anyway, with the exception, I think, of an education official in Mahram. So in and of themselves, the appointments weren't all that big. It wasn't like they were, he also appointed the head of the land authority after the most recent one resigned. But yeah, not that big in terms of the appointments themselves, but the fact that Zubaydi was claiming the authority to make these appointments was considered a big Rubicon that was crossed. Subsequently, other UAE-backed STC-aligned members of the Presidential Leadership Council, Farag al-Bahasani and Abu Zara al-Mahrami, came out and supported Zubaydi, and saying that, like the PLC has been pretty dysfunctional and it's been operating without bylaws and collective leadership, and he was sort of trying to draw more attention to that. So we did see, this crisis culminate on 17 to 18 September with all of the members of the PLC seemingly descending on Riyadh for international mediation. They had the Saudi ambassador there, they had the Emirati ambassador there, they had the P5 ambassadors there. And following this, on 18 September, the PLC issued a statement affirming its unity and collective leadership and called for a review of all decisions made since its formation in April 2022, including those done by Zubaydi. Seemingly, here's a picture of them on the right. They're all smiling. They're never smiling in these photos. I wonder how much the Saudis were saying you have to smile for this photo. But yeah, so yeah, on the surface, everything's hunky dory. It's unclear exactly what was agreed upon within these mediation, because it probably wasn't just those two things. On 20 September, we did see, following all of this, the PLC meet in Riyadh to discuss the economic situation and government reform. And we did see from 21 to 22 September. Oh, yeah. And then in addition to what Zubaydi did on 10 September, between 21 and 22 September, we did see the STC-aligned Social Affairs Authority issue a circular requiring local and international organizations to register with the STC, but they quickly withdrew this amid international pressure. There was also an incident this past month where the STC said that the leadership of a local Yemeni media outlet called Adan al-Ghad, which is one of the most prominent independent media outlets in Yemen, wasn't properly registered or wasn't properly, deferential to STC authority, and they did detain the editor of that, Fatih bin Lazraq, I believe, for a little bit before releasing him. The question is the STC about to do something big? So you have the messaging, not just from Zubaydi himself, but also from a lot of their surrogates, both in the West and in Yemen. STC's ready, and now they're making a bunch of moves with regards to consolidating power even more than they have in certain areas of southern Yemen. Are they about to declare independence? I don't think they're about to declare independence, but they're definitely in a more active mode, and I would not be surprised if they try to push the envelope further, even after this 18 September agreement, decided in Riyadh. Things definitely still seem to be in flux on the ground there. In terms of politics and governance from the Houthi movement perspective, late in August, we did see the GPC, General People's Congress Sana'a branch, expel Ahmed Ali Saleh, the son of former Yemeni President Ali Abdullah Saleh, who was the founder of the GPC, amid an ongoing Houthi pressure campaign. The Houthis, in particular, in mid to late August, were laying a lot of pressure on the GPC to try to change its leadership to be more pro-Houthi, even though the GPC is largely toothless and kind of surrounded by the Houthis with guns and can't really do anything. They still are or at least were well represented in the cabinet. And so they seem to be, trying to bow to that. So they did expel Ahmed Ali Saleh, who had been, even though he's been in the UAE for the last decade, he's not said anything about the Houthis or anything. He's still technically been a leader within the GPC Sana'a, so they ejected him. And then we saw later in September, Ahmed Ali Saleh launch his first public attack on the Houthis since 2017. So so he had kept quiet, hadn't taken any sides. And so, I guess the Houthis pushed him to take one. But really, the big political story this past month was on 28 August when we saw that Israeli airstrike on Sana'a kill 12 Houthi-aligned ministers in the Houthi-aligned government, including Prime Minister Ahmed Ghalib al-Rawi and a bunch of other ministers. We saw subsequently on 30 August, not 30 September, the Houthis appoint first Deputy Prime Minister Mohammed al-Miftah, who was a member of the cabinet, but was was not killed in that airstrike as acting prime minister. He was the guy the Houthis wanted to be prime minister anyway. They had to give Raoui the position because the GPC gets the prime minister. But now they get to appoint the acting prime minister that they wanted. Following this, we did see on 5 September the Houthis detain those UN employees we were talking about on charges of spying for Israel and the United States, including employees for the World Food Program and UNICEF. And we did see between 21 and 26 September the ongoing battle of the September revolutions. Yemen has 2 major holidays, depending on what faction of the ongoing civil war you are, taking place within 7 days of each other. The first, chronologically, is in terms of happening in history, is the 26th September Revolution. This was the 1962 revolution that saw the Republicans overthrow the Imamate, Yemen's theocratic monarchy, that the Houthis are kind of maybe wanting to bring back. So the Houthis don't like it when people celebrate the 26th September Revolution. They routinely sort of round people up for celebrating this revolution, seeing it as a source of division and opposition to them. But then the Houthis also have the 21st September Revolution, which was the day that they took control of Sana'a back in 2014. So that's their holiday for this. And so they did celebrate that a fair bit, but not with the big military parade that you normally see them doing. In terms of commentary and context, how big a deal was this cabinet airstrike? What's going to happen with that? To be honest, and I said this weeks ago on Blue Sky, I don't think it was that big of a deal. So in terms of the Houthi cabinet, the Houthi cabinet really doesn't do a whole lot of stuff. It's staffed mainly with symbolic positions. The prime minister, Ahmed Raoui, didn't have any real power. I mean, this body was, a body that was meeting openly, regularly. I've seen their meetings published and them in identifiable buildings and being like, okay, yeah, like they don't care if these people get killed for years now. Amid these ongoing Israeli airstrikes. I think the reason why they were meeting so openly is because they didn't think that they were important enough for the Israelis to kill. And then the important, like the people who were actually important, even within the cabinet, weren't there when they were meeting. So we do, Abdul Karim al-Houthi, Minister of Interior, member of the inner Houthi circle, he wasn't there. Mohammed al-Latifi wasn't killed. Raoui, I believe, says he was injured but wasn't killed. Miftah said he was injured but wasn't killed. In terms of this actually changing any dynamics of Houthi leadership, not really, except it did kill several members of the GPC Old Guard, which is the GPC is really the only political party in Sana'a that has any chance of providing a counterweight to the Houthis. That they're not very powerful. It's not like they were going to overthrow the Houthis, but they have exerted some indirect power behind the scenes to change certain trajectories of how certain laws were going, etc. Israel and attacking what it could see, because it needed to make a big statement and wanted to make a big statement. Took out really the people that the Houthis cared least about and may have actually been somewhat opposed to them. There's that. Moving on over to military and security. Behind the front lines in Taz Governorate, the big story this past month was the assassination of the Cleanliness and Improvement, the head of the Cleanliness and Improvement Fund, Iftihan al-Mashri, a woman who was assassinated by gunmen aligned with the Yemeni government military. And so that caused a very big furor in Taz. There were protests, ongoing protests. We did see on 25 September, Yemeni government security campaign claimed to have arrested 6 and killed 1 suspect in the assassination of Iftihan al-Mashri. The suspect that they killed was seemingly the main gunman. Rights groups actually condemned this killing of the suspect. There was a shootout and everything, and that resulted in his death. And said that the assassination of Mashri was linked to local corruption networks, and killing the gunman more or less denied a key witness to those networks. So who knows if they just kind of tying up a loose end. We also did see between 26 and 28 September, the Houthis deploy forces north of Taz city. This was believed to secure trucks that were smuggling weapons north to them in Taz. Moving to the east in Hadramaut Governorate, we did see we did see Yemeni government chief of staff Sahir bin Aziz review the 2nd Division of the nation's shield forces at Wadia. So that's the Wadia border crossing is the only major land crossing between Saudi Arabia and Yemen. And then the nation's shield forces later took over the Wadia Aba Road. This is a major corridor. A lot of commerce goes along it. It's also a major strategic area for connecting Yemeni government-held Marib to Wadi Hadramaut and then to Saudi Arabia. We have seen the Saudi-backed nation shield forces, which are ostensibly part of the Yemeni government, but are paid by kind of directly by Saudi Arabia and seems to be taking their orders mostly from Saudi Arabia rather than from the normal Yemeni government chain of command. They have pushed nation shield forces significantly along this area here. It's kind of northern area controlled by the Yemeni government, not controlled by the STC. Islah and other local tribal authorities kind of maintain authority here with Saudi backing. Saudi Arabia over the course of the last year or two has been moving the nation shield forces to take over more areas around here, seemingly to strengthen Saudi control here, as opposed to, for instance, Islah, who is, while ostensibly Saudi-backed, Saudis don't really trust him. So you have that going on. We did see on 29 September, the Hadramaut Tribal Alliance head Amr bin Habrish ordered the formation of additional brigades of the Hadramaut Protection Forces, the paramilitary aligned with the Hadramaut Tribal Alliance, as well as the appointment of a command structure. My theory, at least through observing this remotely over the course of the last year and a half, 2 years, is that whenever Saudi Arabia tries to push the nation shield forces, in particular into Wadi Hadramaut, which is where Amr bin Habrish kind of has more authority on this plateau here, and is kind of opposed to the STC. Amr bin Habrish also tries to escalate against that, to kind of assert his own authority and position against the Saudis, who at least until the last couple months ago seemed to be trying to push him out of any deal or power brokered within that particular area of Yemen. All right, moving on over to airstrikes. So kind of the Israel-Houthi conflict, and there's been a lot over the past last month and change in terms of airstrikes and then Houthi attacks on Yemen, Houthi attacks on Israel. I'm not going to read all of them to you. You can read them here yourself. So I'm just going to give you the highlights. So multiple Israeli airstrikes on Sana'a, Hadada, and other areas over the course of the past month, most notably on 28 August. That was that airstrike that killed several members of the Houthi-aligned cabinet. We did see that followed up on 10 September with airstrikes on the headquarters of multiple Sana'a newspapers that are Houthi-aligned that killed, according to the Houthis, at least 31 journalists. One of the largest killings of journalists in the world over the course of the last, in particular, in a single attack. We did see Israel continue its airstrikes on Hadada port, which it's trying to prevent imports through there for the Houthis. And on 25 September, we did see more than 65 Israeli missiles launched at Sana'a, kill at least 9 and injure hundreds of others, seemingly in residential neighborhoods, but also on security and intelligence service facilities, including a prison or reformatory. I think the Israelis are just kind of hitting what they can see. They don't really care about Israel civilian casualties or really anything in particular, because the Houthis have been launching a lot of attacks at them. They just have to look like they're attacking back. In terms of Houthi attacks on Israel, this actually has 2 slides because there's just been so much throughout late August into early September, just almost every day, every couple days, the Houthis claiming attacks, mostly on Ben Gurion Airport, Tel Aviv, Ashdod, Haifa. Notably, the Houthis have started claiming to use missile attacks with cluster munitions, so missiles that sort of break open and have multiple kind of projectiles and bombs with that. So they claimed those throughout the month. We did see on, let's see, 7 September, the Houthis successfully hit Ramon Airport in Eilat with a drone attack. That was the first successful hit in a while, and injured 2. And we did see them kind of following that, particularly that attack. We saw them throughout September, just seemingly spamming, in addition to other places, Ramon Airport, because they hit that before. Ramon Airport's in Eilat. We did see on 24 September, probably one of the biggest Houthi hits over the course of the last 2 years. They did, on 24 September, claim a drone attack on Eilat, and that drone attack actually did hit, I believe, a hotel and injured 22 Israelis in Eilat. Following this, we did see that large-scale Israeli airstrikes or missile strikes on Sana'a on 25 September. So yeah, so it's just this war is definitely heating up. It's not going anywhere. It's not like the Houthis are backing down. It's not like Israel's backing down. They're just exchanging, which is anyone who saw what the Houthis did with Saudi Arabia in between 2019, 2020, and 2022 could have told you that this was going to happen. In fact, many of us did. Moving on over to maritime security in Yemen, we did see multiple Houthi attacks, as well as an Israeli attack over the course of the past month. 1 September, the Houthis claimed to have hit on an oil tanker, Scarlet Ray, I believe, and the UK MTO reported a miss there. Or the Houthis didn't claim to hit the Scarlet Ray. They claimed to have hit an oil tanker aligned with Israel. Scarlet Ray, I believe it was reported, was missed by the UK MTO. I don't believe the Houthis claimed that name. On 2 September, the Houthis did claim an attack on the MSC ABY, which there wasn't any reports independent of that, I believe. On 4 September, the Houthis, suspected Houthi attack splashed down off of a ship off Hodeidah in the Red Sea. On 23 September, the UK MTO reported a splash, an explosion in the vicinity of a vessel 120 nautical miles east of Aden. So that's in the Gulf of Aden, not in the Red Sea. And on 29 September, UK MTO did report an unnamed ship had been hit by an unknown projectile 128 nautical miles southeast of Aden. So they are continuing that, seemingly ramping them up. The Houthis, for a very long time there, seemed to lay off the maritime shipping attacks to attack Israel itself. Now they seem to be able to do both. So that's going on. Other maritime security news: on 17 September, we did see an LPG tanker anchored at Houthi-held Ras Isa port, seemingly attacked by an Israeli drone. That resulted in one of the LPG tanks to explode and cause a fire. The crew was able to contain this fire, and the tanker later departed Ras Isa. This is the first instance, I believe, of a direct Israeli drone attack on a specific vessel on that Ras Isa port. The Israelis have been bombarding Hodeidah, Salif, and Ras Isa ad nauseum for at least the last year. But now they seem to be getting a bit more precise, because despite all of these attacks on infrastructure, people still keep going to Ras Isa and loading fuel and everything, and they don't like that. We also did see on 22 September, the Yemen Coast Guard sees the Shri Shiv Shakti carrying 21,000 bags of urea, which is a fertilizer that can be made into an explosive, off the coast of Abyad in the Gulf of Aden. This is believed to be part of a smuggling network, perhaps, to give the Houthis a lot more get the Houthis firepower. Moving on over to humanitarian and economic issues with humanitarian affairs. So yeah, on 5 September, the Houthis arrested those 22 additional UN staff and accused them of espionage. Over the course of the next week, we saw the UN come out with a bunch of condemnations. On 14 September, UN Resident Coordinator Julian Harnais met with the Houthi Undersecretary for International Cooperation, Ismail al-Mutawakkil, in Sana'a. That's that picture here is of that meeting on the right. And then the next day, seemingly, the Yemeni government reported that the UN resident coordinator's office was going to relocate its offices to Aden, Yemeni government-controlled Aden. This has been something the Yemeni government has been asking for years, and the UN hasn't done it because they say that they have to maintain a presence in the north because that's where most Yemenis are, and ordinary Yemenis in the north need support too. But just the Houthis' continuous detention and harassment of UN workers. They started doing this most recent round back in June of 2024. We're now in September of 2025, and they just keep rounding people up. And it seems very much that the UN's just kind of done. So we did see, Julian Harnais kind of who defended engagement with the Houthis for the last several years now, moving his offices to Aden, seemingly. We did see on 15 September, UN OCHA head Tom Fletcher addressed the UN Security Council. The main thing from that really was the call for the immediate release of detainees. 24 September, we did see the World Food Program state that it's suspending its activities in Houthi-held areas after the September detentions. We did see on 26 September, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres meet with Alimi and other members of the Presidential Leadership Council at UNGA, and say that several UN agency offices are preparing to relocate to Aden. So this is really a watershed moment in many ways, because the UN is finally seemingly pulling back in a substantive way from Houthi-held areas. We've seen this really since June 2024, following those detentions. We saw a lot of international organizations pull back in a big way. So this is even prior to Trump and his cutting off of aid, which on the sidelines of UNGA this past month, we did see the Yemeni government meet with U.S. officials and say, hey, can you turn this aid back on? We really need the aid, because the lack of that aid is really causing funding shortfalls for humanitarian operations in Yemen. But even before that, we were seeing a lot of international organizations pull back, because the Houthis would just, whenever something bad happened, they would target the UN. And so they would round people up. They now have over 40 people UN people in their custody. And so the UN saying, okay, first do no harm. And now, in order to do no harm, we have to make sure that we're not essentially hiring the people that we know the Houthis are going to detain. Seems to be the rationale. And so so this is kind of a big thing. This is part of a long-term trend, but this is one of those big kind of switch moments, perhaps, that we'll look back on as a major kind of shift here. Moving on over to humanitarian and economic issues for banking and currency. Really, the big story over the course of the past several months has been the CBY Aden's attempt to stabilize the currency by more or less kind of asserting its control over the banking sector and imports, and control of foreign exchange in Yemeni government-held areas. So that seemed to be going pretty swimmingly, actually. Late July through August, the exchange rate had been stabilized. We did see some pushback, seemingly, this month. On 11 September, the Southern Money Changers Association accused the CBY Aden of mismanagement. And so there were rumblings, perhaps, of elements within the Yemeni government that are trying to push back on the CBY Aden's pretty aggressive campaign to assert control over imports and foreign exchange, and rationalize the use of foreign exchange to maintain the exchange rate. We did see on 11 September the National Council for the Regulation and Financing of Imports, so I believe I got that NCRFI acronym correct, met to discuss the new import financing mechanism that requires importers to only import using banks. So a big part of this push has been to consolidate foreign exchange accounts, both from government agencies, which have been all over the place, but also for importers from the exchange sector, which is less regulated, to the banks, and then being able to control that and sort of give approval for imports to rationalize the control of foreign exchange. We saw this at the NCRFI and the CBY Aden meet and discuss various ongoing issues for that. Probably the big story with regards to Yemeni government finance happened on 21 September, when Saudi Arabia finally released $368 million in aid to the Yemeni government. This is months after it was supposed to have done that, and seemingly is less than what one would expect or want if you were in the Yemeni government to get aid. So this is definitely very important. The Yemeni government doesn't have a lot of foreign exchange. It needs dollars. Generally, over the course of the last couple of years, if you look at it, Saudi Arabia has been giving about $250 million a quarter. And then their last major injection had been in December 2024 for about $500 million. And so we were expecting, even the Yemeni government was seemingly expecting something to happen in May or June of 2025. We saw the newly appointed Yemeni government prime minister, Salim bin Barak, say that he wasn't going to come back to Aden until they had negotiated international support. And everyone was speculating that he was going to get the Saudi package, and, it was going to be roughly $500 million is what I was thinking. But that never came, and then he went back to Aden. And so the Saudis seem to, in part because they're tightening their own belts in a lot of different ways, but also just seem to be less engaged in Yemen, have been more lacking. They haven't necessarily been super engaged in sending this support, and it's been more infrequent, and it's been less. It's also been significantly linked to political leverage. So you may notice this disbursement happened on 21 September. That was just a couple days after the Presidential Leadership Council seemingly came to some sort of an agreement to resolve that crisis caused by Zubeidi's appointments. So it would not surprise me at all if that grant was linked to that as well. So not late. It's late, probably not as much as the Yemeni government wants, but it's more than nothing, and the Yemeni government definitely needs it. So yeah, and we also did see on 28 September, Yemeni government Prime Minister Salim bin Barak open Article 4 consultations with the IMF. In other financial news, we did see on 11 September, the U.S. Office of U.S. Department of the Treasury, U.S. OFAC, sanctioned 32 individuals and entities, as well as 4 vessels in Yemen, China, the UAE, and Marshall Islands linked to the Houthis. This is part of an ongoing U.S. OFAC campaign to sanction Houthi fundraising networks, oil smuggling networks, weapons smuggling networks, just really everything, just going after. And they've done this multiple times over the course of the last couple months, several months now at this point. China notably came out pretty loud and announced its strong opposition to these U.S. sanctions against Chinese companies, which were seemingly providing components to Houthi weapons, is kind of, I think, what the main accusation was there. So that's all I have for me. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for waiting on me through the month of September as I got all this together. I have one related reading, and that's the thing that kept me away from doing this for several weeks there. I have a piece out with the Arab Center DC from 12 September, Fueling Instability, Hydrocarbons, Protests, and the Limits of Yemen's Internationally Recognized Government. Essentially, with this article, I try to take a step back from the day-to-day headline chasing that you see in a lot of analysis, and focus on understanding the underlying political economy of how finance, how money is created and wealth is created in Yemen, and how it's distributed both regionally and also sort of within government structures, corruptions, that kind of thing, and kind of look at that and try to urge policymakers to focus less on trying to assassinate particular people, because that's not really worked, and airstrikes haven't worked, and more on trying to understand the political economy of hydrocarbon flows in Yemen, in particular in Yemeni government-held areas, and why they cause the Yemeni government a lot of problems, and how they could possibly work to try to resolve those to create a stronger Yemeni government that can possibly contain the Houthis and kind of bring about an equilibrium within Yemen that could hopefully bring about peace, is sort of the argument that I'm making. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to check out that article. Spent a lot of hours working on that. Thank you so much to the Arab Center DC for letting me write that. But thank you so much for listening. I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks, because this is now a bi-weekly call. But you all have a great one. And remember, if you want to reach out, info.nickjbrumfield@gmail.com. Thank you.